The West African Agricultural Productivity Program, WAP, is a two-phase 10-year adaptable program initiated by ECOWAS and funded by the World Bank. Its goal is to improve agricultural productivity with focus on sub-regional integration, promoting shared growth and reducing poverty. Family poultry is comprised of the indigenous species of poultry birds such as chicken, turkeys, ducks and guinea fowls. This sector forms over 80% of the total poultry population in Ghana. It is a sure way of ensuring family food and nutrition security for the women who are mostly the owners of this family poultry. This provides income and alleviates rural poverty. Newcastle disease is responsible for an annual loss of 80% of these birds, and the only effective measure of control is by vaccination. The Accra Veterinary Laboratory since 2000 has been producing the NDI2 vaccine on commercial scale after several laboratory and field trials showed the vaccine was efficacious in the control of Newcastle disease. The vaccine was used during the Vaccination project in selected districts in the three northern regions of Ghana, Northern, Upper East and Upper West regions, with encouraging results. However, after the project in 2010, production of the vaccine was discontinued due to lack of funds.
The vaccine is known as the thermotolerant Newcastle disease vaccine. It was developed in Australia, and the master seed is now distributed all around the developing world, so that we in all the developing world can now produce the vaccine.
It is against this background that WAP Ghana and the Accra Veterinary Laboratory started the production and quality control testing of the vaccine once more. Furthermore, the program has supported the field administration of the vaccine since September 2013. Other WAP participating countries, that is Niger and Gambia, procure the vaccine and have used it with satisfactory results. Almost all the WAP implementing countries have now expressed interest in procuring some of the vaccine. This is the Accra Veterinary Laboratory, where the I2 vaccine for poultry is produced. It is a restricted area with strict compliance with hygiene and safety measures to avoid any form of contamination.
Already incubated eggs, and they are 9 days old, ready for use. But because you are transporting them, you need them to acclimatize to the laboratory conditions. So you bring them from the farm straight into the incubator. If they are fetal eggs, you incubate them for 9 days. If they are fetal embryonated eggs, you incubate them maximum 1 day. Or even if they are already 9 days old, you just incubate them for a while, maybe 4 hours. Then you pick them from here and come in here to determine which ones are viable and which ones are dead. And then you mark the site of inoculation. So she's inoculating, she's marking the air chamber and the point of inoculation, which should be free of blood vessels.
Before the process of inoculation actually starts, the inoculation area and all instruments used are sterilized with 70% alcohol. To prevent respiratory air from coming into contact with the eggs for possible contamination, nose masks are worn. Hair caps are worn for the same reason. The eggs are flooded with alcohol, after which they are wiped with cotton wool.
The mark around shows that all this area is what we call the air chamber.
Okay.
And this is the site of inoculation. And the eggshell is still intact. The needle that you are going to use cannot punch the eggshell. So with a special device, you punch the eggshell to crack it, to make it easy for the needle to go through. So she's not making the hole. Just a little punch. The purpose is just to crack the eggshell and make it easy for the needle to go through.
After inoculating the eggs, the holes created in the eggshells are sealed to avoid insect invasion, especially with ants. This is done with candle wax, with the aid of another syringe to seal every individual hole. Dates are marked on the eggs to indicate the specific vaccine being produced, and in this case, the I2 vaccine. This will avoid them being mixed up whilst in an incubator for 4 days.
It's 4 days now, so by now the viral multiplication has reached its peak. If you leave it longer than 4 days, they'll start dying. so you won't get a high titer.
The eggs are taken out of the incubator and put in the fridge for 24 hours.
The reason for putting it in the fridge is that 1. The virus we've inoculated into the eggs does not kill the chick growing inside the egg. So 9 days plus 4 days means that the embryo is 13 days or 14 days old. And a 14 days old embryo is a very big one. It's left with just 9 weeks or 1 week to hatch. And since it's very active and it is not dead, you cannot start harvesting the allantoic fluid there. It will be aggressive. And even that one, it is not ethical because it's like cutting a chicken when it's alive, and our profession abhors that. Number 2, the blood vessels, because of the cold, will collapse. And then when you are going to harvest now, the blood vessels will not contain too much blood to contaminate the allantoic fluid you are going to harvest. So she's picking the eggs now after 24 hours from the fridge. Then back to the biosafety cabinet level 3. So we'll have to sterilize again, clean them. Yes. Because this is where the thorough cleaning must be done. Because this is where you are going to cut open the egg to harvest the vaccine.
With the aid of a pair of scissors, which is first sterilized to avoid contamination, the eggs are cut open. This is a skillful exercise with a lot of caution to avoid cracks and breakages. After every single cut, the scissors is wiped with cotton wool soaked with alcohol. Before harvesting, a simple test is conducted to ascertain whether or not there is some level of growth of the virus in the eggs.
She's mixing equal volumes of the allantoic fluid and 10% suspension of chicken red blood cells. Chicken red blood cells, because this virus has the ability to clump chicken red blood cells. So if it is present, you see a sign that the chicken adversary has been clumped, and that gives you an indication that there is viral growth. But it doesn't tell you how much of the virus is there, so we'll do other things. This is an indication that there's no viral growth because, see, when the viral grows, the egg white becomes emulsified. You see? But on the other side, it's not. So after this, it will indicate, okay, this egg has the virus growing inside, and then the allantoic fluid will be harvested. We will do what we call the quality control of the vaccine. We inoculate into bacterial media to find whether this thing which happened was due to bacteria or due to the vaccine. We'll also do titration again in the eggs to find out the concentration of the vaccine harvested. Then we will also, now, if we know the concentration, then we dilute it to get the vaccine dose. So this is the vaccine that has harvested, diluted with 2% gelatin. What you are seeing gelatinous here is gelatin. The gelatin protects the virus. So under this condition in the fridge, this vaccine can be stable for 3 years. But in the liquid form, it can be frozen too. And if it's frozen, and inshallah we have constant power, it can stay for up to 5 years. But where there's power fluctuations, then we try to do what we call stability testing to determine how long the vaccine can trade with these irregularities. This wet vaccine put into these bottles and freeze dried. And that machine. The temperature is minus 70 degrees. Yes, and high pressure to create a vacuum in here, and then the pellet. If you take it to the fields, you just inject 2 ml of distilled water, sterile distilled water in it, and it immediately dissolves, and then it becomes this. Yes. And then you apply it by eye drop. This is a wet form. And this is 5,000 doses.
For 5,000 birds.
For 5,000 birds.
So this small thing can take care of
5,000 birds.
Birds from chicken to
turkey to guinea fowls, yes. It can be the commercial birds, it can be the local birds. But we most target the local birds because they have a peculiar husbandry system. They are free range, they roam around, they are not stable. All the other imported vaccines cannot be used in the free range system because they are temperature sensitive. This vaccine can withstand temperature up to 56 degrees. Can withstand a temperature of up to 56 degrees Celsius for up to 5 hours. The imported vaccines, most of them, almost all of them, especially for the poultry industry, at room temperature, in a matter of 30 minutes, half of it is spoiled, even at room temperature. And that's why when they are being administered to birds, the birds must drink the water within 1 hour. If this is supposed to be administered to commercial birds, they can put it in the water and the bird can drink the whole day and the vaccine will still be stable. The other interesting part of this vaccine is that you can decide in commercial poultry where you have them confined, where you have a population of, let's say, 500 birds, vaccinate only 5 of the 500 birds and put them among the 500 birds. And in 5 days, all the 500 birds will be vaccinated. This is because in 5 days' time, after a bird has received this one, the bird starts excreting the virus in the respiratory tract, when it breathes, when it sneezes, and then in the fecal sacs. But the most aggressive form is the respiratory tract, and it's in the air. And because it can withstand temperatures of up to 50 degrees, in the hen coop, the temperatures are never above 26 degrees. And at 26 degrees, the virus can stay for up to 1 week. And therefore, all the birds breathe in the air will breathe in the respirated vaccine virus and get vaccinated. We call it horizontal spread. And the vaccine is very cheap. A dose, which is for 1 bird, costs only 0.02 pesos. Not even up to 10 pesos. It's 2 pesos per bird. And a bird has to take 4 vaccinations in a year. And it is protected for life. So you need to spend 8 pesos on a bird and protect it for its life.
The team then decided to visit Afienya at the outskirts of Tema off the motorway. Here we are told lots of the inhabitants keep village poultry, mainly chicken, guinea fowl, ducks and turkey. This is Afienya. Deborah Homeku is a poultry farmer who once operated on a large scale but lost all her birds to the Newcastle disease.
Yarin bakun emwani nyama me manya scan.
Mama na unyawa onya nkoko ne dabo
ne turkey. And guinea fowl.
Okay.
Anti yarin bakun manya scan bi anti say ma jai poultry no. Anya say me pese me na so ma jai kakra ansa. Anti say that me.
But buy me who say still a warm around that, like I said, what does one? I said, 1 year almost a 1 year, but as a free range, About 20 households here in Afienya practice free range poultry as an alternative means of livelihood to support the family income and also for personal consumption.
I had them 15. I confirm yes 6. In Kokonu year 25.
25. Inti imoya wonyen say wonyen say ukuma modern area ni dia na say wonyen omoton wo.
At times me ton na say upese ukun bi so a free enti na we adwuma no. Enti say uhia bia na wa kun. Na uhia ska so a at times school fees. And now, person who talks squat area na bibia, and the ubetom.
Deborah tells us that rearing these birds is not such a difficult task. All it basically requires is to feed them in the morning and leave them to roam till it's call time for another meal.
And the program be a medical a bit water, a bit war akra. And me call home and son or more the way I trim.
Okay.
Say at times me from one or more matem and the way the more trim says or more macra and to me so way.
We decided to have a practical demonstration with administering the vaccine, and the process is pretty simple. All it takes is a single drop in each eye. The process is repeated every 4 months.
And they say, oh, I'm what 2,000 or 3,000 a day.
She actually took over this business from her mother, who is also a poultry farmer, and recounts her mother's bitter loss she incurred due to the outbreak of the Newcastle disease in her farm.
I can first know, also all year poultry no be. We share with a 9 way. Cockless. We are not so what has now the same problem. Our yare no hit. Na ninya we until your best start double.
We are now supporting the veterinary services to get much of this vaccine to the rural areas, so that farmers can have access, and then they will save a lot of their livestock on which they depend on.
Thanks to the vaccine, she can proudly boast of about 80 healthy ducks currently being reared in her mother's backyard. On our return from Deborah's house, after visiting her mother, we bumped into an August visitor who explains her reasons for visiting the community.
You will agree with me that if a woman has an empowerment or a woman is empowered, that woman can take care of her house. That woman will not wait for her husband to come before she sends her child to hospital. So it is an idea that somebody like me, coming from the northern part of the country, hearing it, I took it upon myself to come to this vicinity and to see how our women are going about with the poultry aspect of it.
Hajia Zainab Mahama is very passionate about the practice of village poultry, especially in her own community where she comes from, and the enormous benefit it brings to the family.
I'm now entreating my fellow women that poultry has come back to our doorsteps. They should come, they should embrace it. I have embraced it, and I'm carrying this group back to Bole. I make sure that I'll send them to Bole for poultry activities to be more cherished by my people. In the house, if one has about 100 fowls or 50 fowls, you can imagine. A northern woman like me cannot take your husband's cow to sell. You can't sell a sheep, but you can sell fowls to take care of your children. You can send your children to school. You can make sure that if a child is sick in the house, you don't wait for a man to come in before that child is being sent to hospital. So I think it's a laudable idea, and I think somebody like me would like to be part of the poultry activities. My joy comes in, I saw some of the women giving vaccines to their bears. I think we have to applaud the veterinary services. In the olden days, all the bears that we were rearing, you rear fowls about 10, 20 before you realize 90% are dead. But with the vaccine today, the farmer is using the vaccine herself or himself. The vaccine now helps the farmers to get more yield. They get more fowls. Those days, if one was getting 100 bears, today, believe me, 90% of what you are going to have will be saved. Because when you give the vaccines, the animals those days with Newcastle, today, because of the vaccines, they are all off.
During the second phase of WAP, we brought veterinary services on board to look at the vaccine, production of vaccine to address Newcastle disease in poultry. We realize that majority of our farmers, smallholder farmers, they depend so much on poultry. And there's no compound or community that you go and you won't see poultry. So on the WAP, we are supporting the veterinary services to produce new NDI2 vaccine, which is very efficient in addressing Newcastle disease in poultry. This vaccine has come in at the right time, and it is very efficient. It's just not efficient only in Ghana, but the whole of the West African zone or region, they are looking up to Ghana to supply them with the vaccine to also address their Newcastle disease in their respective countries.